there's anybody on here yet. I'm just getting set up. I got most of the stuff laid out, but I want to be able to see the chat too. Rune, I think any time of day is a little too early to decode binary. It's fun, but it's super unnecessary. We're not robots. Use words. Yeah, I know, it's pretty late. I'm gonna try and see if I can swing one a little earlier, maybe like on Friday night. But you know, I fit it in where I can get it in. Denmark. Right on. I've seen your name around. Actually, quite a bit on YouTube. I think specifically, maybe part of SE Lock and Keys group. I forget what he calls it. It has a funny Lock Force. That's what it was. Is he still making videos? Ah, okay. I think this time I'm gonna not ping the entire Discord before I get going. My goal for tonight is open up this package, which came from Correct Jeans, and that way I can get a look at least at some of the black locks I've got in front of me, and then hopefully I'll beat this Desmo, and then I don't know. I don't have high hopes for getting into this M-Heart tonight, but it's been pointed out to me that it's pretty easy bidding and a pretty easy keyway, so I don't know. Maybe it's like a 7 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10. I really like watching Jason's videos, by the way. He's I don't know. He's got a way about him that I enjoy. All right, let's get going. There's a lot less people around than the last time, but I'm not going to let that stop me. It's practice after all. So in order to not dox myself or CJ, I'm going to have to open this face down. And there's a challenge lock in here that is different than most challenge locks because it was created by the president of Mako Locks. So it's not your typical challenge lock. It's not something that somebody just went to town on the pins and put it back together. It's actually built, I guess, to be challenging just from the start. But the thing is, he put all the keys in here without covering them back up. So what I'm going to have to try and do is use this duct tape to cover the key up, or the keys up, that are specifically for that lock without looking at it. And I thought a couple of different things. I was like, I could put a bag on my head or blindfold or whatever. And I decided that you're just going to have to trust that I'm not looking. That should be enough to get in there without really seeing much. Let me get a piece of tape ready. Hopefully I can snag both of them without too much trouble. There's two other locks in here, but they're both magnetic locks, and I feel like their keys should be pretty different from an SFIC key, so there we go. Okay. Feels like locks. The keys in here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get through bubble wrap with just my fingers, I think. Well, that's definitely keys. Okay, that's not an SFIC key. That's something different. It's a lot easier to do with your eyes open. Okay, these are on a ring. I don't know what the hell is going on there, but that's not an SFIC key either. I think I feel a key ring in here. Yeah, that feels about right. I bet you that's them. There should be a control and an operating. And they say COVID-19 on them. Let's see what this is. Well, I'm fairly certain that's right. Let's cover these up. Okay, cool. Those are right. Yeah, so I felt these on this key. I was like, what is going on there? This is a Miwa. CJ's been kind enough to lend me two magnetic locks. This is a Zeiss Icon System M, which I am told is an exact duplicate of the MCS. It might have a slight variation. I know this key looks different, this ridge coming out, but that might just be like key control or something. And then this Miwa is pretty cool looking. It's got these 8 magnets on it, and then some bitting here. And I remember we actually did a video on this lock, so before I attempt to pick this lock, I'm definitely going to watch that video. I know CJ and Captain Hook have both beaten that particular lock. I think we either combined footage for that or did 2 separate ones. It would have been a Teardown Tuesday and a Sling Saturday back then. Okay, so here's the challenge lock. That's pretty cool. Hopefully I can beat that at some point. I'm not going to try and do that tonight probably, but hopefully I can beat that soon and pass it on. I want that to make as many rounds as possible. I know a handful of people have already done videos on it, but that's what it is. Nasty challenge locks directly from the wholesale in 25-piece boxes. Wow, that's pretty cool. What's up, Patrick? Okay, so there's the smooth as butter. Love it. It's like the best feeling, other than popping a lock open, the best feeling of a well-designed lock is just how smooth they operate. Okay. All right. Well, Correct Jeans has made it clear to me that he does not enjoy picking magnetic locks, which worries me because he's a very skilled picker, and I haven't tried to pick a magnetic lock in earnest ever. I made a half-hearted attempt at an LZ once, but obviously I never got there. So, all right, so that's that. That's cool. I have 2 black locks for the end of this thing if I ever do get there. Let's see, Ruko D12 is the minimum I install. We have the ground plus 6 pins and 10 sliders. Nice. So I take it you're a smith then. Here's the key from the COVID locks. So COV-19, stay safe. And on the other side it says keep picking. That's awesome. I really appreciate the fact that Mako interacts with the community. That's just neat. All right, so I'm going to start off not where I left off. I'm going to start off at my first failure, which was this guy. And, you know, I'm not going to explain it away. It kicked my ass like 4 different times. And I think probably it was mostly nerves, but, yeah, I don't know. It's not that good of a lock. I just couldn't get it open. All right, so I know that I have to tension it more than I was last time, because I did actually manage to pick this off camera. So I'm going to do the same thing I was attempting to do the first 4 times. So when it goes that way, it's springy one way and not the other. All right, so it is like that. And it turns out, I'm pretty sure I had this thing picked a couple of times, but I just wasn't trying to rotate the core enough. Wasn't giving it enough force. When I sat down and just kind of did it calmly without anybody watching, it popped right open. So hopefully I can replicate that. Any of you guys that do videos know it's sort of a phenomenon. The just being watched changes how things go for you sometimes with locks. I don't even remember how I was picking it last time. Was it like that? I think I was picking it off of the tension wrench. Let's try that. But you know, you pick locks and it can become easy to forget the basics. You know, make sure you have adequate tension so that there's actually binders, locate said binders, and then move them. An hour, huh? Or it takes over an hour of picking. Yeah, it goes that way sometimes. This thing has a sort of half-bound feeling to it, where like a lot of the wafers feel bound at the same time, but they don't feel so stiff that you're certain they're bound. So it's just kind of like fishing around for that one that's just a little more set than the other ones. Oh, that sounded good. They all seem to be happy where they're at, which is not what I want. I'm just not turning that? Okay. It's definitely still locked. There it goes. It doesn't even give you that satisfying pop like a padlock normally does. But, you know, I told people that I would pick this the next time, so there's that one. This is the pile of things I picked last time. It's rather unimpressive. We got an American Lock clone, Master 140, Master something. I don't actually even know which one that is. The brinks I did at the very end to make myself feel better about failing at the Desmo. And then Medico is probably the only one that's a decent lock, but that's pretty old. So, all right, so I've got, let's see, which one did I not do? I didn't do blue, and I didn't do white, but I just did a white lock. So at some point I need to do a blue lock still. But I'm gonna attempt to get brown and red started at least tonight. So welcome to the party there. Is it Federico? How do you say that? Get we done, Diggs. I don't know what that means, but it has exclamation points, so it's encouraging. All right, so I have a couple of guesses at what's going on with this Desmo. I know for a fact that I was trying to move things too much the last go around, because what I did is took the core out and inserted the key to put all the sliders where they need to be, and then I pulled the key straight down out of the keyway. And what that allowed me to do was see the bitting exactly where it sits on this bitting. And it was actually kind of tricky, because when you look at this, you might assume that the fourth slider sits down here, but it does not. 3 and 4 both sit up here, and 2 is here, and 1 is down here. And on this side, 3 is actually lower than 4. So you know, it kind of looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's not. It's 3 here, 4 here. So 4 is just a hair higher than 3 is, and 2's, you know, way up there. Not all the way up there, but way up there. And then 1's kind of middle of the road, but it's just slightly higher than the left side is. So I got to a point where I could picture where these things need to be in here, and I'm looking down the keyway, and I can put those nubs just about where I think they need to be for real. But the issue is they can be real close to that and still be wrong, and it's very hard for you to know. So what I don't know at this point, if you look at the action of this lock, it takes sort of this force to overcome it. And I feel like if it were smooth, if it had a smoother action, I would have already picked it. Because I'm fairly certain I put the sliders in the right position. But it has this sort of hang up, and I don't know what that is. So if anybody has an idea as to what that could possibly be, feel free to throw it out there, because I'm at a loss. And it makes me concerned about being able to pick this in general, because I feel like even if I got everything to the right position, I don't know that a tension wrench thin enough to fit here is going to be able to present the same amount of force as this key is. So either I need to set things and then switch tension to the bottom for it to be strong enough to actually rotate the damn thing, or yeah, I don't know. But the resistance seems to be a little bit less going left, going counterclockwise. So I'm going to continue to try and pick in that direction. When I put the key in there and pulled it down to see exactly where these sliders need to set, I snapped a picture of each side with my phone. But I'm using my phone to stream this, so I can't really look at it. Or maybe I can, but I don't really want to mess up the stream. So I think probably what I'll do is just smoke and then go at it. For those of you that are in here, looks like there's 10 people. Yeah, about 10 people. If you haven't already seen, we're doing a fundraiser that's about to end, where you can buy a t-shirt with the Lockpickers United logo on it. All that money is going to go to some locks that we're going to give away for the channel. So if you're interested, I put the link on the description of my last video, the one where I made keys out of pewter or whatever. You can just hop over there and jump in. But we already sold 50 something of them and made a good chunk of change to buy some locks. So I'm happy with it. It's not like we need everybody to go buy one. Exactly how you pronounced it. Federico LeBron? I don't know. It's got a thing over it, so I'm sure I'm wrong there. I'm gonna guess that you are I don't know. Probably shouldn't guess. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say French. Yes, no, maybe so. Argentina. Of course, I was way off. Well, I don't think I've ever talked to an Argentinian before, so hi. So, alright, so on the last stream, I made this pick pretty quickly, haphazardly, and it seems to do the job. I'll show you the tip. The one side, let me see if I can get this in the light. One side is longer than the other, just by a little bit. Come on, focus. It's hard to see on the camera actually, but the fork that's on the right now is just slightly longer, so it's a little annoying. But it seems to be working. Somebody suggested that I put depth marks on it, and if this thing fights me for a little while, I might actually do that, because I'm doing it all by sight. You know, I'm using a piece of paper behind there so I can see down the keyway and put this in the right spot. The front two are real easy to get on. It's trying to figure out if you're on 3 or 4 in the back that you really need to be able to see it. And I had a couple people suggest that I turn it sideways. If you see, the flats on this lock are here and here, which would suggest that it's actually installed like this, but I don't know. I just like to have the keyway of whatever lock I'm picking vertical. I think I'm sort of biased by the locks I've encountered so far. Yeah, lock hack. That's everybody. The one thing that I found that helps with the focus stuff. There's an app for Apple or Android, I think, called Open Camera, which will allow you to just tap on your screen and focus on exactly whatever you're looking at. But I can't do that when I'm streaming YouTube. It just is going straight to the website. So, all right. So I'm gonna get a white piece of paper. If you've ever done a slider lock, you probably know why. You can see right down the gut of this keyway out the back, and I find it as effective as sticking a light in the front or the back. So that's how I do it. Some people feel like it's cheating, some people don't. Frankly, it's just, I feel like if I could stick a light in the front of it and see all this stuff, then I could also just let the light in through the back. It's the same thing in my mind. Let's see if I can get, I gotta find the tension wrench that's the right one for this. That's a pretty good fit, I think. Maybe slightly better. No, not that one. Definitely not that one. That's even looser. But this is the closest one I've got. And here we go. So I'm going to start off with all of them bottomed out. They're all pretty much there already, just from gravity. Oops. What I've noticed is that I only ever really get a satisfying click out of number 2 on the left-hand side. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. But this side definitely tells me more, left-hand side. It might just be because I'm tensioning it first, and then once the other sidebar's in play, the right-hand sidebar doesn't bind as well, and so it doesn't, the sliders don't set with as much impact, I guess. It feels pretty tight. I don't think that is in the right spot. Maybe it is. I still haven't exactly gotten down the feel of, okay, this slider's set and this one's not. That sounded good. Playing ping pong with sliders 1 and 2 right now. I'm getting one set and the other one's dropping on me. Yeah, let's get 3 and 4 lifted up a little bit. I know these need to be kind of middle of the road, and I don't want them to get locked down completely once I do set these front ones. So just going to get them closer to the mark than they are bottomed out. Green light to be able to go back to doing my normal work. What is your normal work there, Lockhack? What do you do? it's moving pretty good. So what I'm told is that if you are in a true gate on this lock, the slider will jiggle quite a bit. But if you are not, it moves a lot less. And I'm just going with that community wisdom to see. You go to fix stuff, huh? So like that's what we call a handyman. Not necessarily specific to a trade, but kind of a jack of all trades. All right, I'm going to say that that's good and see if anything's bound up on this other side. You can normally tell if one sidebar is set if the other side starts binding, but it doesn't appear that anything is bound up on the right hand side. And I never got like a real satisfying pop on this side, so obviously something isn't right. Not sure what it is though. Alright, I'll take two up on the side and see. Fix my air conditioner. Yeah, let's shoot that air conditioner just for fun. What's it doing? Does it not turn on? Nothing right now. Anything bound at all? Not really, no. Weird. It's not even, the first side's not even popping into place for me right now. It's told me I'm off somehow. Let's take a look at this. So you can see from the bottom of the key to the top, this lip right here, that is the entire scope of where the sliders can move. And this bar here is where 3 and 4 sit, which is higher than halfway. And right now I have them sitting at about halfway, so that's probably part of my issue. So they're like right at the halfway mark. I think they need to go up a little bit. Okay, both of those gave me a little click, so that's a good sign. Okay, so I got a pop and core rotation there. Pretty sure the left hand side just went in. And we can check that with the binding of the right hand side. It's just a little bit tighter. Where's slider number 2 at? Where'd we go? That's bottomed out. So we know that one's going to be sort of high. And one on this side. That's about the middle of the keyway. There we go. 4's got to be just a hair higher than 3, and both of them are pretty low. They're reluctant to move downward. I'm gonna bring in this little what's this, a half glide, I think. So try and get these down with a little more force without upsetting what I've already got. I saw somebody in chat earlier talking about using Dimple Pics for this lock. And it threw me at first, but now I sort of get it, because you have the potential, if they're low and you need to get some good leverage on them, a dimple pick would do that. Be good at levering up on it anyway. Alright, so the challenge is get number 4 to move upward and leave 3 down low. I gotta move the back one without moving number 3. I'm sort of set in pairs, so it doesn't lend itself to doing that, but I think I can pull it off. Oh, I could just slipped past the true gate on 4 there. It sounded good, and then it kept going. I'll play there for a second. The 3 isn't bottomed out either. It shouldn't be all the way down. It's got just a little bit of height to it, just a hair. 4 seems pretty solid, which tells me it needs to go somewhere else. Okay. Nope. You got some more core rotation there. And I'm wondering if that's it, and I just am hung up. Let's see. Oops. No, that doesn't quite fit. No. All right. I'm going to go through and start checking them all now and see if I can find anything interesting. I'm being internationally vague. That's an awesome sentence. Circuit board on the AC because I have a spare and that didn't fix it. Window all winter, and now it's warm back up. It's just been blowing warm air. I'm going to go ahead and take a haphazard guess at your AC problem and say one of the seals has gone. Temperature fluctuations tend to go after seals in my experience. Not my AC experience, I don't have much of that, but just in general. Let's see which one of these guys refuses to move. But the notch that I made in the end of the slider pick is just big enough that it can kind of jiggle around them. See, this one feels tight. Number 1 on the right hand side feels tight. 2 is loose enough. Let me just jiggle it with something else. 3 feels alright. 4 feels alright. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's just this one. So the question is, does it need to move up or down? Looks like it's sitting just below halfway point. And this key makes it look like it's exactly half. So I might just need to go up just a hair on this guy. I'll lose my progress. Oh, hang on a second. It just moved me backwards. And that's locked up tight. I think I have to let tension off and move it up, but I don't want to drop stuff. That's my hesitation here. I'm trying to get a really good position on it before I do that. I'm also not sure if I can angle these very much to get them to move for me. Ah, fuck. Yeah, I definitely dropped stuff there. I don't know how much. Damn it. All right. So, back to the left side. Nope, that seemed pretty good. Although 3 and 4 look awfully high. We'll go with it for now. In this attempt, in order to not have the exact same thing happen, I'm going to attempt to keep this number 1 slider on the right hand side, like right in the middle of the keyway. Let's see what that does for me, if anything. not bound up now. Pretty solid chance that I'm just playing this game with way too much tension right now, in the hopes that I won't lose progress. Sometimes it's counterproductive to try and hold on to things and instead figure out exactly where everything's happy. Try a couple of different directions to get things there instead of just taking the same path over and over again, which I'm sort of doing right now. Okay, well, I wasn't anywhere there. I was really damn close, and I think number one on the right-hand side was the only thing that had me. But after it popped loose on me, nothing seemed to be setting, so I'm going to reset the lock and let the sliders bottom out and go at it again in a minute. There's a bunch of different people in the Discord going right now that I've never talked to before or seen before even. I was just getting ready to link the stream in the Discord lounge again. Somebody did it for me. So how many of you that are watching this actually are interested in picking high security stuff? Or are you mostly just, I don't know, just picking easier padlocks for fun? Hey, Naswick's here. Picked a few purple belt locks, one brown belt, and I'm working on some brown and red. Nice. Yeah, I beat that one already, Naswick. You missed it. Maybe I'll do it again later for the stragglers. I'm going to go at this thing again. Let's see what's what. Since you're new to the party, Not that it really means a whole lot. I had this thing real close again. I got both sidebars to give me a pop, and it still just wouldn't open. I feel like it was stuck on slider number 1 on the right hand side. Well, in fact, I know it was because it was bound up tight and everything else was jiggling, so. Come on, might have to go higher than that. Damn. Really resisting the urge to pick this thing sideways. I feel like I have enough justification too, just because somebody pointed out that they are actually installed that way a lot of times, but at the same time, just like some people feel like backlighting is cheating, I feel like changing the orientation of the lock is sort of cheating. I want to say one of the mods in the Discord said it wouldn't count for a belt anyway, so. That was something. I think I slipped right past it though. I'm gonna give a Dimple pick a try, just to see what it's like. I haven't done that yet. I can get things to the desired height a little easier this way. My guess is it'll go fine until I have to do the other side, and then I'm trying not to touch the first side. No, that actually felt pretty good. Four seems happy, but 3 does not. Another touch on 3 and see if I can get it to pop even more. just lost 4. Okay. I'm pretty sure I've got 2, 3, and 4 now, and now number 1's locked up. And that is why sidebars exist. And 4 dropped when I put 1 into place. The nature of a sidebar is that if you are able to set it in order from, let's say, the face to the back, like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, they tend to be a lot happier than if you set some of the middle stuff and then you do 1 and then 4, or 4 and then 1, because you've got that sidebar rocking and sort of putting uneven pressure on it. So if you can, setting the fore and aft sliders or pins or finger pins or whatever it may be first is the way to be, but they generally don't tend to bind that way. So that's why sidebars are so prevalent, because they just in their existence are a pretty good anti-picking measure. But not all sidebars are created equal. So. Acet tends to have some pretty good stuff though, both in sidebars and tolerances, machining quality, all that stuff. They make a really good lock. Or did, I guess. I don't know if Desmos are still produced or not, but I know Acet Alloy is a powerhouse in the lock world. So. I'm playing ping pong with sliders 1 and 4 right now, which up until tonight has not been an issue. Okay. Now we're back to number 1 doesn't want to be in place. I wonder if I can sort of hunt like that. Okay. I might have the left side set now. And 2 stuff in. 4 feels pretty good. Not so sure about 3 though. That's moving. We'll come back to it. Try and get something out of the right hand side. See if we got it bound up at all. I'm having a hard time figuring out which one it is. I think 3 on the left-hand side is bound up. But it did just let me set a bunch of stuff on the right-hand side. So maybe that's the trick, if this actually works. Leave 1 outlier on the first side to bind. Yeah, 3 is just not on the move. It does look like it's in the correct position though. I'm saying it's the variance in heights needed is sort of tight, so. Yeah, that one's moving. That one's moving freely. Three and four on this side will feel pretty good. Three needs to be lower though. Let's stick to what's bound. Number three on the left hand side is I really can't tell. Moving or not? Ease off tension to get it to move at all. Something a little more precise in there. Well, that didn't do it. 3 and 4 dropped, and so did 1. Seem happy. Too high though. I don't know about the Dimple pick. I think it's just, it does give you better leverage, but I think it's just too easy to shoot things past where they need to be. You let tension off enough for it to move, it really moves. Okay, well, that's interesting. I think I accidentally touched something on the left side and set it while I was messing around on the right hand side. Well, let's see what's bound up, if anything. 1 and 2 are loose. 4 seems pretty happy to move, but only just. Get out of here, improve my vision a little bit. What's up, Bonks? That's what we're doing here. On the side, not count for a belt. Yeah, it makes it easier. That's why picking it on its side would sort of change things. I know you probably asked that a long time ago, but my focus is on the lock and not the chat. The other thing that people talk about with this lock is putting some heavyweight oil in it, like lubing it up with something that's pretty viscous, and that'll keep the sliders from falling too. But this lock doesn't belong to me, so I'm not doing that. I need to reset my tension wrench here. Not really sure why this side isn't bound up like I feel it should be. I may not have the left-hand side set as well as I think I do. Let's take a look here. One is about the same as 3 and 4 right now, so 3 and 4 aren't high enough. That's what I'm doing wrong. That's where one belongs. Okay. That was a good pop. And I got some core rotation there, so I think left-hand side's finally set. Alright, let's see what we can do on the other side. 1 and 2 are moving just fine. 3 moved for me. Kinda hoping that 4 is bound up, because if it's not, then it means it's lying to me again. Alright. 4 got a little pop there. And get 3 to go back down. Pretty sure 3's got to be low on this guy. 1 and 2 are still loose as all get out. Higher than 3, but it's still less than halfway up. That might actually be right. Around that. All of a sudden 2 doesn't want to play. Alright, I'm back at that same weird spot. 1 is moving for me now. Feels like it's set. 2 feels like it's set. At least what I think it's supposed to feel like. 1 on this should be just at like halfway up the keyway. Maybe a little higher for that guy. And of course, it doesn't want to go higher. And 3 and 4 should both be lower than 1, which they are not. So the question is, how do I get 1 to move higher without unsetting everything? This is not the exact same place I was, but it's pretty damn close. Before 1 was all bound up, and now I think it's a gate away instead of stuck in a false like it was before. I bet if I let it off, all of them will drop. I should have brought a rubber band over here. If you've ever been in this situation before, you'll know exactly what the rubber band's for. So hold your tension. You can strap it around here to the vise and get up and move around and stuff without losing your progress. Well, I don't have a rubber band, but I do have duct tape. That'll do it. In there. Okay. 100% sure, huh? You never know until you try it. That actually worked pretty well. I gotta go use the facilities. I'll be back in a minute. What's in this lock? All right, so Desmo is a brown belt, and it's got 8 sliders in it. There's 4 sliders on each side. There are no springs, and they ride in the track on this key. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Trying to get things to focus and see in delay is not easy. There you go. So it picks up the sliders from the bottom and then lifts them to whichever height they need to be. And there's 2 tracks, one on each side. So the difficulty that I'm facing right now is that once I get everything really close and I'm on like the last one that's bound up, it just doesn't want to pop over because Acet machines things really, really well. And so as I'm trying to get this last one, I'm gonna have to ease off tension to be able to move it. And when I do that, the other sliders can drop. So I don't know. It's hard to say. It definitely looks like, I don't know, number one sort of jiggles like you want it to. When it's in a in a true gate, it does jiggle sort of just like this thing is, but I feel like it's too low. Or, yeah, it's too low. It needs to move up a little bit. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. With the left-hand side track all the way at the front of the key seems to be just a hair lower than the right-hand side. But in the lock right now, the right-hand number one slider is just barely below the left-hand side. So I feel like it definitely needs to move up. But again, I'm trying not to lose the position of every other slider, because they all seem to be somewhat happy where they are. So I think what I'll do is try not to pop it. I think that's what happened last time, is when I eased off tension enough for it to move, I was putting too much pick pressure on it, and so it popped, which popped the sidebar, which unset a bunch of things. I'm just going to try and get a nice light even pressure on it, and then just ease the tension, kind of rock the tension a little bit back and forth, and see if I can get it right into the spot where it'll pop over and let me turn it. Okay. I was able to move it there. Now I'm able to move it all around. What did I lose? What moved? Huh. Interesting. Saw something back there drop. Oh! Ah, fuck. The whole thing's turning in. Damn it. The whole thing's turning in the vise. I had me convinced for a second there. Oh, man. And that's why you make sure your vise is tight. Yeah, it looks like most things are still generally where they need to be. So let's see. Let's just kind of jiggle things around and see what's what. That's loose. Weirdest thing. No, nothing is bound at all. The fuck? Squeezing it too hard? I think I was squeezing the whole thing too hard. Man, this lock really has got my number. I don't know what it is. It does get harder to turn if I squeeze down on it too much. At the same time, I don't want it loose or I'll have a situation like I just had. I jumped a little bit too there, Naswick. I thought I had it for sure. It's like, wait a second, it's moving. But not so much. Just trying to get back to where I was now. That's definitely way too high. Let's see what we have here. Okay. I think we're back to left side is set. Right flag to get this back into 4. Trying to figure out if number 2 on the right is supposed to be taller than number 2 on the left. Doesn't look like it. Pretty much aligned in the lock. Feel like 3 might be a little high on the right hand side. 7's supposed to be pretty low. Every time I let off enough tension to move that one on the front, I lose stuff. It's pretty frustrating. That's exactly what it's designed to do, though. So, yeah. It's not really surprising, it's just frustrating. That's 3 is way the hell up there somehow. Must have popped up whenever I was pushing 1.
That would be exactly where they should be. 1, 3, and 4 are pretty much lined up. I think I need to take them a little higher. Lose my spot here. Oh, shit. Shot way past where it needs to be. Oh shit, there it goes.
That only took 2 sessions and I don't even know how many hours. I'll let the boys in the Discord know, because I don't know. It says there's 5 of you watching, but I think you're probably all asleep. Alright, so before I go on further on this one, I am going to gut this one. I didn't bother gutting the Medico, mostly because I forgot, and it was the first time I had ever streamed, but for browning up, I will gut it. Plus, this isn't actually that hard to gut, so take it apart. This is it. That is actually picked. Means I get to try an M heart tonight. I don't have a whole lot of time, but I'm excited to move on to something else. Okay. Let's get flag. Alright, so gutting a Desmo, at least this format, all you gotta do, put the key in, hopefully you have a key, turn it to the side, slide it out, and any lock that you got a sidebar, you gotta watch them, because typically they're sprung outward, and this lock is no different. So as you pull it out, you want to pinch it between your thumb and your forefinger here. You can see that's the core, that's not the core, that's the lock body. It's a little late, forgive my terminology lapses. We go left sidebar first. And that's driven by one of these pins and springs. It sits down in the side chamber here. And we'll go right hand. Don't know that it's actually important that I keep these left and right, because I'm pretty sure they're the same thing, but I will anyway. And while I've got the key in, I'm going to show you what I was talking about. So if you're having trouble with one of these, you can actually pull the key straight down and see when you have the, you want to do it with it butted up against the face though. Give me a sec. Let's jiggle this back into a happy place. Come on. You got to have the butt of the key right up against the face, otherwise the bitting will lie to you. But if you're able to slide it straight down and keep it from going into the lock, you can see where they sit. And I've let that slide forward on me, but you get the point. I'm not gonna go crazy with that. Since they're not sprung, you can just pull the key out and use gravity to let them fall down in here. But on any sort of slider lock that has springs, you don't want to just pull the key out, otherwise they will shoot into the air. So I'm going to cover up every hole except for right number 1. Let's try to. Actually, you know what? That's dumb. I can just pull it out. Let's get a pick. I'll let them sit bottom out. And I'll just slide them out where they want to be. So this is left-hand side, number 1. I'll let them come out even further. There we go. I can just use our tweezers. Or we can push them back into the lock. Alright, left-hand side, number 2. I'll get you a view of these in a minute here so you can see what I'm dealing with, or
was dealing with anyway. Yeah. And now that there's only one row of them, I should just be able to knock them out. That was the one that was giving me trouble for most of that session. It's that number 1 on the right hand side. So I get you a closer look at these real quick. This is what the look like. Now, they look like they have a giant spool, but really what you're dealing with is this is the part that interacts with the key. That's the part that you're picking. That's the nub that extends into the keyway. And then you've got a barrel there. Let's see if it'll let me focus. Yeah, you got a barrel there with 3 false gates and a true gate, and you're trying to distinguish between those two, and really the only way is movement. So there's the Desmo down. I can change my belt back to brown at least, and I have a victory smoke and take a shot at this M heart and see what I got. Get that position back where it should be. Okay. And since I have a really bad habit of not putting locks back together, I'm going to go ahead and put this one back together before I move on. I don't actually remember which row is left and which row is right, so I'm not going to put this back together right now. I'm going to have to watch the video to remember. Well, I don't have to, but I'm also not going to put them in there and try it with the key and figure it out. So, all right, let's get this out of my face. And where the hell is the M? That's it. I made a tension wrench specifically for M-heart locks a while back, but I don't actually know if it works, and I'm not going to take this thing all the way apart just to test it out, so I'll probably wind up just using a regular tension wrench on this, at least in the first round. Chances are I'm going to have to take the cap off of this and progressive pin it, which is annoying because it's a kick cylinder and they don't lend themselves to progressive pinning nearly as well as, say, a grub screwed mortise or something like that. All right, let's see. So, if you've never seen an M-heart before, this is a pin tumbler that has, you know, your straightforward cuts for the pins. However, they're cut at angles. So you can see they need to be rotated to the correct position. Now, unlike a Medico key, do I have a Medico key still sitting out here? Somewhere. You see on the Medico key, you've got left, right, and straight cuts that rotate. M-heart is just left and right. There is no middle, but their pins are different. They actually interlock. It's not two separate pins. Well, it is two separate pins, but they the key pin and the driver pin actually slide together. It's like a dovetail almost. And inside the lock body, there are channels that they can ride in, and that's why you have these cuts here. Those ride in the channels inside the lock. It's all sort of confusing, but basically what you need to know is you have to set the pins and you have to rotate the pins to the correct direction. And they're free spinning in there. There's nothing that keeps them from rotating left or right. They can go to whatever degree left or right they want. Now, this one, I think, not this exact one, but I have tried to pick an M heart before, and it beat me. It was a 6-pin lock, and it had grub screws. It was great to progressive pin on, but it actually got me so frustrated that I just put it down, and then I wound up selling that one. Because as I was progressive pinning it, I was like 1 pin easy, 2 pins easy, 3 pins easy, 4 pins. I can't feel anything. Like there was nothing. I was getting no feedback from the lock at all. And it's because I was trying to pick it like in Medico. When I was getting ready to do this, I actually looked up a couple of videos to see, all right, maybe what did I do wrong, you know? And it turns out you don't pick it like a Medico. You don't set all the pins to shear and then rotate all the pins. You set 1 pin and then make sure it's rotated correctly, and then you move on to the next one. Otherwise, the feedback will die and you won't be able to feel anything. So that's my bit of understanding on it. I know I've got to set pins and rotate them, and I know that I've got to do that one at a time. But my guess is I still will not have the feel for what it feels like when it sets. After a few of them are set, I feel like the feedback's probably going to die on me. And I also am not sure what a correctly rotated pin feels like, although I'm led to believe there's a noticeable rattle. So I'm going to see what I got. This Keyway looks big enough to take a heavy bar, which is good because I like using heavy bars. Which is, if you don't know, that's a 50,000ths of an inch thick. It's a product made by Sparrows. Okay, so this pin doesn't want to let me under. Right now I'm just looking for binder number 1, which is the first pin that feels like it needs to be moved. Seems like it's number 5. Okay. So that one's set. And my urge is to move right on to the next one and set it, but I gotta find something that I feel like can get in there and actually rotate number 5 before I move on. It's pretty deep. All my picks are pretty thick too, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to sneak around that warning necessarily. Yeah, definitely it's not going to let me just play like that. Oh, maybe it will. That number's 5. That's 6. Let's try scooping under the whole pack here. Seems like a pretty good rattle there. Alright, let's see if I can find another pin to set. put some more attention into it. I'm not finding any binders right now, so might be just not giving it enough attention here. I can't feel anything. Wow. Let's see. Let's reset it and see if I can find a different pen to bind for me. And it might be that I just didn't have that pen rotated correctly, and that's why I couldn't feel anything. It's a strong possibility. I wonder how long I've been going. Let's see what time it is. It doesn't actually say. I don't know. I feel like I started probably like 10 maybe. It's like 2 hours of Desmo. You combine that with the, I'm guessing the last hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of the last one. Desmo was, took me 4 hours or some biz. Lots of people have picked it, and most of them enjoyed it. I won't tell you that it's not very hard, but that one definitely had my number for a long time. It felt good to open that one. I was real concerned about it not wanting to turn. Alright, so we're definitely going to have to progressive pin this. I'm not going to just fiddle with it all day. Question is, if I take this cap off, will I be able to slide it right back on? And a lot of times you are not able to do that. And you can tell because the edges over the key retaining, the retention plate, I guess is what I call it for now, for lack of better terminology, is crimped down on either side, and you know it's not going to come off of there. If you look at this one, it looks like either I or someone else has been in there before. It's kind of pried back a little bit, and it looks like if I slide this, I'll be able to just take some pins out. I really hope that I'm right. So I'm gonna go for taking out the front pins if I can. Let's see, what's the best tool to use for this? Go with this little baby flathead. So try not to mess up the spring. Okay, it wants to pop out of there already. I don't want that. I want it to slide. Okay. Okay. Looks like I can get at least chamber 1 loose, maybe. The this is where having a map with multiple places to put things and or multiple trays is a good idea. It comes in handy anyway. And at least you get to see these really cool pins. So check this out. Oh shit. And I dropped it. Okay. Didn't go too far though. Let's see if I can show you this without dropping it again. We've got a driver pin. You see it's got a slot on it. Then we've got your key pin. The key pin has the slot. The driver pin's got an arm on it. And it's a T slot. And they slide together like that. So you have to manipulate the key pin to rotate it so that the driver pin can slide out and separate from the stack. Alright, so we got one out of there. I think I'll probably take out 2 chambers for now. Let's try it again and see if I can get better feedback and an idea of what I'm doing right, if anything at all. I remember the last time I was able to get 3 pins, but as soon as I took it up to 4, I lost everything. So I'll take one more stack out. 3 out of 6. Whenever I progressive pin things, I always, depending on the format and if it's feasible, I will start by pulling stuff out of the front of the lock, because identification and access to the back of the lock is generally just a little tiny bit harder than the front. And so if you practice the back first and you get that down, then once you start going after the front of the lock, it's not that big of a deal to set the rest of it. Alright, so we got the first 3 chambers empty now. It wasn't even really necessary for me to push that back. I could have just left it. Let's set our kick back in there. Make sure the key works. You don't want to over crimp or over tighten my vise here. Sometimes it puts pressure on the lock body. It actually makes it harder to turn and therefore harder to pick. Once you actually have it picked, it's harder to turn. Another thing you got to watch out for is stuff like that. It's rubbing back there, but that's not enough that I'm worried about it. Just something to look out for. Be real frustrating if you worked on a difficult lock for a long amount of time and then you got it picked and you knew you had it picked, but you weren't able to turn it because the vise is too tight, and then the whole thing collapses when you try and loosen it. I'm gonna stick with where did I want to go with this pick? I think I probably need something a little steeper, but not so steep it won't fit. This might be the answer, but I don't actually know. The angle seems too extreme to get it done. I can just catch the edge of the pins trying to slide through the wiring. But I don't think that's going to function for this pick. Let me let this little guy and see about him. The pins are not giving me real clear messages here, but at least I can feel some things happening. Yeah, the M heart is extremely evil. It's beaten quite a number of black belt pickers. It's a really cool design, I think, too. In case you don't know the history, they got sued real hard by Medico for quote unquote copying the rotating pin design, and so that's why M hearts are sort of sought after. One, because they're just a neat design, but two, because they're sort of rare. They weren't in business for a very long time. And I think there's still some product out there to service existing locks and contracts, but they were a subdivision that Corbin Russ went and didn't exist long enough for there to be lots and lots of them. So you'll see them go on eBay for $50, or if it's like a nice new in box, new old stock like M Heart padlock, those things would go for $250, $300, something like that. Yeah, Patrick, I did the white belt lock at the very beginning of this stream, like 2 hours ago. If you're still there, there's no timestamps on the chat, at least from what I can see. I just realized that my picking angle completely obstructs your view, so apologies for that if you're actually watching. I'm trying to give you a little better view. Right now I'm just sort of trying to familiarize myself with what it feels like to set a pin and try and get an idea of what rotation access I have. It's not much I can tell you. Everything feels just kind of springy right now, which tells me I probably have something overset. So to rotate pins, you basically you pick it just like any other pin to get it to the shear line, but what I like to do is sort of move up and down on the pin a lot more times than I'm on the pin, I'm moving up to shear line. It's not one action, it's I'm going to move it up a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And a lot of times the rotating pins will find themselves where they want to be rotationally. But if you set it and it is not where it wants to be rotationally, every lock that exists has some sort of a tell. At least all of the Medicos have a tell. You can notice the difference between something that's rotated correctly and something that's not. But as for rotating them itself, you're going to be looking for a pick that's got a real deep hook on it. The biggest thing that you can fit in there, steepest sort of hook that you can fit in there, and what that allows you to do is angle it left or right in the keyway and either pull or push at it. That's, preference based on what you like better, what you feel works better, but I tend to pull at the edges of it. So you aim at the left side of the keyway with the tip of it, and then you pull back towards yourself, and that will pull on that edge of it. Because all the pins that need to be rotated in locks have some sort of a wedge shape on the tip, like a blade shape. So as you there's always some sort of a lip there for you to catch, because there has to be for the key to be able to rotate it. That's always the downfall of any lock, is there's always going to be a way to pick it so long as there is a key for it. Because in order for, it's not really that because there's a key you can pick it, it's because lock companies have to make locks repeatable and long lasting. So They make things a little more sturdy, a little more open. The key is not as crazy as it could be because they want that key to last, you know, 500,000 cycles or however many times, you know. So very commonly what you see is locks that could be more secure that aren't, in order for them to have longevity. You could definitely make locks a lot harder to pick that had keys that would only work once, but it just doesn't wind up mattering, because if you want to stay in business, your locks need to work, and locksmiths need to be able to service them, and your keys don't need to not snap all the damn time. So that's basically what they're up against. Now, it wasn't until I started trying to design some locks that I figured that out. You start to appreciate all of the things that come into balance in a lock when you try and design one yourself. This thing's giving me absolutely nothing, guys. Like, I can feel things moving around. I can hear them. I know what's going on in there, but I don't feel anything akin to a bound pin that I can move after the first one. So I'm gonna have to break this thing all the way down to parade rest, but it's fucking 12:20 already. So yeah, I'll probably just hang out for a few minutes and smoke, and maybe I'll pick that white belt lock one more time just because you asked about it. But if you guys have some questions, now's the time. I'll try and answer whatever you got. I think red belt's going to be another night. It seems to be just Patrick and anthropophobe. Yeah, I'll go with anthropophobe. You realize that your A is a 4, though, right? It makes your name makes me think of the word anthropomorphic. Anth is fine. Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, that'll happen. I tried to get lockpickersunited@gmail.com, and somebody already had that. Probably somebody from our group from like years ago, but I had to make the email for our YouTube and all that United Lockpickers instead. Yeah, I have picked an Ava ICS, or Eva, depending on how you like to pronounce it. Are you working on one right now, or just kind of curious about it? Not working high security. I'm always curious what people can pick. I gotcha. Yeah, so an ICS is gonna be damn near impossible to do blind. It's sort of like, I don't know, I put most slider locks in the category of I wouldn't pick that in the field. I would drill it, because while it is possible, it's gonna take you a couple hours. The one that I had, I spent probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 hours on it, and that was with access to all of the elements and being able to set them into the sidebar and look down the keyway and backlit, which you're not going to have in the field. So it's they're really damn difficult if you're going to try and do that blind. But yeah, it would never be worth your time to pick one of those versus drilling it. But they are really cool locks. I think, I don't know if I still have one or not, but I picked, the only Ava lock that I haven't picked at this point is the MCS. So I'm going to count this System M, if I'm able to get into it, as the equivalent, because I think it actually is, if not exactly the same, damn near exactly the same. So, yeah, the ICS is pretty tough. 3KS is on the easier end of the spectrum as far as slider locks go. And then the Dual is got to be one of the coolest keys I've ever seen. I kept the key to my Dual. I think I sold the Dual, but I had 2 keys and I kept one of them because it's just so cool to look at. So I picked all of those. And from what I understand, 4KS is basically the same thing as the 3KS. It just has another track on the key, maybe, but it's functionally the same, is my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Yeah, they do look like they're out of a sci-fi movie. The 3KS key is awesome looking, too. 3KS, 4KS, 3KS Plus, they're all pretty much the same as far as I've seen. I'll show you guys something if I can find it real quick. So, out of all of the locks that I have ever owned, my personal favorite is the Mercy, the Merce. I never know how to say it. I think it's Merce, but it's anybody's call, really. So it's a 14 lever lock that was in production for NATO, I think. And the key does not look that crazy. It looks sort of old school, if you will. But this thing is a masterwork of locks. It is a masterwork. There's just, it's designed in such a way that if you try and move one of the levers by itself, it locks up. If you try and move one half of it before the other half, well, it has to function that way, right? So you have to get 7 of them correct and simultaneous, and then another 7 of them correct and simultaneous. And so I started trying to build a tool to get into this thing, and it's just so small. Like, in order for you to be able to manipulate all of these things, you can't pick it like a normal lock, because as soon as you tension it, it locks up. So it's just, it is very intense. I'll at some point I'll beat it, and definitely will do an in-depth video on it, but for right now it's got my number. I'll show you my sad attempt at a tool. This was the first one. So I took a chunk of brass and basically made pretty close to a key blank out of it. And then, well, actually, before I even started that, I drilled a hole through it, right? I drilled a hole through a chunk of brass, and then I worked around that hole so that I would have access to the center of the key shaft. Let's see if I can show you. And without doing enough research or practicing or whatever, I drilled some pretty terribly unstraight, uneven holes into where the bits go. And so this tension piece is exactly the same. The dimension of this is close enough, right? And then each side is cut down to the lowest possible bit. But I'm going to have to, one, remake it because I blew it out trying to file it into correct shape, and make a bunch of tiny movable bits. And then the idea is to have a central rod with a cable running through it that can turn and position itself at each bit and move it to the correct distance. But the problem is, even if I make it there and I can make that function, you still have to move all of the levers at the same time. So I either have to figure out a different way to beat the blocker system, or I don't know. It's just not gonna happen for me. That's like my rainy day, completely out of ideas or whatever. Like I don't feel like picking or whatever. I'll just sit and think about how the hell could I possibly make that tool. And I've sort of started to get better at it, but I'm still not nearly good enough to make that. That's 12:30, so I'm gonna call it. I appreciate you guys showing up and watching and shit. Oh, we got a question. Okay. What do you think of the future for physical locks? Rumor has it Abloy will not make a new one ever again. Yeah, I don't buy that at all. Digital locks have already been proven to be unreliable. So, how do I put this? It will always be more cost effective and secure. Well, maybe not always, but for the foreseeable future, it will be more cost effective to produce mechanical locks that are more physically secure and sound than electronic lock. Anything that I can hack will be hacked. There's tons of smart people out there, and half of them are in R&D, and the other half are white hat, black hats that just like breaking things for fun. So I'm reminded of somebody. I read an article about one of the, I think it was the Click, when the Click system first came out. Somebody had an Abloy Click at DEF CON, and they fucking reverse engineered that thing and coded a master key that would open all versions of that lock in less than a couple hours or something ridiculous like that, maybe a day or two. So yeah, digital systems they're just not there yet. I feel like eventually you'll be able to encrypt things like that well enough that there wouldn't be as much worry involved. But at the end of the day, I don't want a lock that a phone can unlock or a computer can unlock. I don't know if it was Abloy Click or a different Click, but Abloy pretty much owns everything now. It seems like it's like Abloy and Allegiant seem to own just everything, except for maybe Ava. So I think the Click across the board, like I think there's multi-lock clicks and all that, but it's all Acet Abloy. But for my money, I'd much rather have this M heart on my door than anything they're making that's digital, because nobody's picking that. They're gonna have to drill it. I mean, okay, let me rephrase. There's a very small subset of people that could pick that lock. And if that subset of people wants to get into your house, they're going to. Like that's, professional spies or whatever. They're going to get into your house if they really want to. But yeah, Patrick, that was more of an anecdote. I don't remember exactly which lock it was. I just remember that it's sort of newer tech, and they brought it to DEF CON and tore it apart real fast. So there's only so many different combinations that you can use and have the lock still remain simple. But I saw a really cool aspect of that system though. I went to the Aloha convention in DC. Was that last year or the year before? I forget which. But they have integrated into some of these systems. They have a master keying system that will allow only certain keys to work at specific times of day, which I thought was really cool. So you could have like a whole facility set up, and you could have these 10 people granted access, and they can get into the building to do their work, but 5 hours later their key won't work anymore until the next day or whatever.
I thought that was pretty cool. Because that's, you know, that's something that a mechanical lock can't do. You want high security, but also want to open their locks with their smartphone. Yeah. Well, they just don't know that there's a solid difference. You know, they think that the problem is that everybody calls their shit high security, and that line in the sand isn't drawn. It's not distinct for the average consumer. So they see every lock at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever with a box that says high security, anti-bump, anti-theft, anti-pick, this and that. And we all know the reality of that. Almost all of those are very, very easy to pick. So a lot of people think, well, if it's a keypad, then nobody can pick it. But half of the keypads have keyholes on them still. You just pop a cover off the front, or it's plain as day, like right in the front. Granted, it might be like a quick set smart key or something, but those are very defeatable. All you need is a little shim. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's again, it's back to that conversation goes right back to what can they afford? You know, how much money does it cost to add an anti-bump pin or two or three or five even? Like what if every chamber in their lock gets that one addition? Does it cost 1 penny per lock or 1 penny per chamber? Because if it's 5 cents a lock and you make 1,000,000 locks a year, it does add up. And so the companies wind up taking the cheapest route, and they just kind of count on the I don't know, lack of knowledge that exists, because it's pretty prevalent. I don't know. For my money, I'd say if I was going to put something on my door that's fairly available, I mean, I think at this point you still have to go through a locksmith to get a Medico, but I would put a Medico on my front door for sure. I would be much happier with an M-Heart just because I know the difference. Uh, but I wouldn't put a naval lock on the front of my door, and it's not because of the quality or anything. It's just um, the serviceability. You know, it's not really big in the American market, as far as I know. I don't know a whole ton of locksmiths, but most of them they deal with the typical over the counter type locks. Some of them have Medico, some of them have um, a grade or two higher, but I don't think hardly any of them are rocking Ava anything. So I wouldn't want to have to drill one of those out, though I would if I got stuck in that position. Yeah, that is the phrase. Locks only keep honest people out. I mean, every time I have this conversation with somebody um, who doesn't pick locks, who isn't interested in it or whatever, they say, why? If you're making lock picking videos, aren't you showing people how to break into things? And I'm like, listen, if somebody's going to break into some place, chances are they're going to use a brick or a crowbar. They're not gonna pick the lock. But if you really wanted to break into some place that had valuable things, their locks are better than your average run of the mill thing. I'd be pretty interested to get my hands on a key mark. I seem to see a lot of those on buildings that have more valuable stuff, just to see what they're like. I've never picked a key mark before. I think there's some sort of a subset of Medico, but I'm not entirely sure.
that's just from talking to people. I think they're either part of that company or used to be or whatever. But yeah, I started to say goodbye a couple of times. I do need to go to sleep. Lots of vulnerabilities. Yep, dogs are a good security system. So is a gun. But not everybody's willing to have that. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. It's cool being able to chat with people and just sort of vomit the knowledge that I have acquired. I'm super rusty. I used to pick a lot more often, but trying to get back into it, get the feel back. Anyway, have a good rest of the night, everybody. Or for those of you around the world, good morning. It's probably like 10 a.m. somewhere. Well, it's definitely 10 a.m. somewhere. But yeah, I will see you guys later. I'm looking at doing another one of these maybe Friday night. Maybe. Deuces.